The year was 1940. The Hailes family, mother, dad, Irene, Warwick, and Jack, went up to Alaska to visit relatives up there. We drove along Stanley Park. And there's Irene. And we went on a ship to go over to Victoria. Dad had been in the Navy for 15 years, so Dad and Jack were wandering over the ship. He was happy to be on a ship. That's Gladys and Gwen. That's Dad down by English Bay. Gladys again, and Mother, Warwick, and Gwen. Gwen is a cousin. We loved being down by the ocean, by English Bay. Warwick and Dad again. Warwick and Jack and Lorraine. Lorraine is Gwen's daughter. They were the same age and they had fun together. Irene just had her hair done that she's trying to hide from the movie. I had just bought this movie camera. They had just been introduced, and I was happy to have this movie camera. Mother, English Bay again. Warwick, Jack, and Gwen. Back on from the ship, seeing scenery from the ship. Gwen, Lorraine, Dad, Jack, Warwick, Gwen, Gladys, and Mother. We all enjoyed being on that ship. That was a man of war. But World War II was raging over in Europe at the time. And all the countries were going under Hitler's regime. My dad hated Hitler. No, Irene again. Dad liked being down on the English Bay because he had been worried that Hitler was going to walk over and take England. Our news press sounded like England was ready to go under too. But when we got there to English Bay, he found friends that had got different news, and he enjoyed that. This is the cemetery where his brother was buried. That's Dad in Stanley Park. And this bridge goes over the one side of Vancouver to the other, over the river. Stanley Park, Gwen and Irene. Here we are at the nursery. They raised their own beautiful flowers. English Bay. We all loved being by the ocean. Dad, Gwen, Warwick, Jack, Lorraine, over. Oh, this is the Brigham Young Parade. The premiere for the movie Brigham Young played in Salt Lake City before it went playing other places.
That's Jack. That's an otter.
Has it gone back again?
No, it's recording.
Well,
Go ahead. Talk.
well, we're back in Stanley Park here.
Right.
And having fun in Stanley Park. Scenery is so beautiful around there. They've got the mountains and the ocean and the bay and all that goes with it. Stanley Park is just surrounded by water and these beautiful, gorgeous mountains. Ducks floating on. Now we're over in Alberta, Canada. This is Connie, Gwen's sister. Connie and Eldon Quinton, who lived in Alberta, Canada. Jack and Lorraine, they were there. Now we're back in Utah, the ranch of Iris Nielsen. Now we're at Temple Square. It's Irene there. Temple Square is always so beautiful. They have such beautiful people and who know how to take care of the flowers. It's where they hold general conference Marcy's sister Dorothy. And Chick had just come home from taking his army training. He said he felt like a Christmas tree all decorated up with all these badges. The Davy family. Leland and Ardella Davy and their 2 children, Russell and Joanne. They lived on 8th West, just around the corner from California Avenue. Now this is Francis Bromley. And his wife, Haru. And now we're on California Avenue with Warwick on the tractor. We're right by the bridge by Tenney. Now we have skipped over to the premiere of Brigham Young, the movie Brigham Young. And all these actresses and actors were there. They put on this big parade before the Brigham Young movie was shown anywhere. They had this big parade in Salt Lake. Everybody was there. This is down Main Street. This is all the parade. I don't remember the actor and actresses' names. Now this is Jack. Sister Lee. This is in the Harold B. Lee's yard. His beautiful backyard. And his family with Maureen and Helen. Their 2 daughters. Maureen, Sister Lee, Fern Lee. Harold B. Lee was the one later on was the president of the church. I don't.
Did you click something?
Warwick mowing the lawn at 1084. My brother Donald in his Boy Scout uniform. My dad and Jack with his friends having a boxing party. We're at University football game in Salt Lake City. University of Utah, and I don't know who they played. Sheila and Melba Gannell at the Capitol. I think we're at the Capitol building. Yes, we are. The Salt Lake Capitol building.
the mountains somewhere.
It might have been up City Creek Canyon. Or Big Cottonwood Canyon. They were camping somewhere up in the mountains. That's Melba Gunnell, Wilda Nielsen,
This looks like
Sheila Woodland.
This is Aspen Grove, Mom. That's Aspen Grove.
You think so?
Yeah, that's the amphitheater there. There's Bridalveil Falls.
Yeah, I think maybe it was Zion's.
No, Mom.
Now we're in Salt Lake City. I think this was the Armistice Parade. Yeah, this is the Armistice Parade. I don't remember what year, probably around 1940. My father might have been there. It seemed like he was in the parade. I think that's why one reason I was taking the pictures, but I'm not sure. But I saw that British flag and I thought it might have been he. But this is Main Street in Salt Lake City. Wilda Nielsen and her friend. Chick home from, I think he was stationed in Alaska after he graduated. One of the first places he went to was up to Alaska, and then they'd fly down every once in a while. It was real exciting because we'd all be at the airport. Now we're at a party. That's Edith Green. I just got the movie camera. Reading the movie book, Christmas Time. It's a Christmas party. At Temple Square in the snow time. Martha Breer. Melba Gunnell. Ardella Davy. Now we're in the Lee's home. That's Maureen and Helen. Now we're at 1084. That's Sheila Woodland. My brother Chick. Dad. Elda. Sheila again. Irene. Kenneth Cropper. All around 1084 California Avenue. Chick, going back to the airport. Those were the friends who came with him, his assistant pilots, apparently. He was stationed in Anchorage, Alaska. Warwick and Jack. Warwick was taking private lessons, and he took Jack with him for a ride in the airplane. This is before Warwick was in the Navy. This is when war was threatening over there in Europe. We were getting ready, long before Pearl Harbor, but we were preparing for invasion. It's Kenneth Cropper again. He had been on a mission to England in the hull where Chick had been. Jack. Donald. Irene. I think this is at 1084. Donald and Jack with their horse. I think the horse's name was Sport. Dorothy. Now the horse is riding on California Avenue. It's Betty. Betty Jones, I think her name was. Yes. Sheila being the gracious hostess. Jack with his sled. I think this is at Eckers Hill where we went skiing. You could drive up partly at Parley's Canyon, and there's quite a ski area there. And the big hill, too, where they do a lot of jumping, but there's a lot of just sort of sloping grounds that made it easy to ski. That's Irene there. And Sheila. Jack. Chick and Dorothy. Jordan. I think we're up in Brighton now. Brighton's at the top of of Big Cottonwood Canyon. That's Kenneth Cropper's. We went ice skating this day at this lake up in Brighton. Or at least it was a pond, I don't know. Now here, I know we're ice skating at the Cannon Farm, which was across the street from 1084. They had a big farm that went in where the overflow of the river made this great ice skating pond for us to go ice skating. Irene and Jack. Curzon skating with him now. I think these were friends of Curzon's. I don't remember their names. Oh, what fun we had. It was the big thing to go skiing. Changed winter to a fairyland after skiing became popular. We could hike the mountains in the winter and hike the mountains in the summertime and ski all winter. Now we're at Iris Nielsen's ranch house again. I think it was right there on the border between Nevada and Utah. Wilda Nielsen. We were all there having lunch. Now we're back in 1084, and that's the Jordan River, right at the rear of 1084. 1084 was our backyard bordered the Jordan River. Boys used to have a fun time going up and down the river in their boat. Between a horse and a boat, we had all kinds of fun at 1084. This is the tractor clearing the road up Big Cottonwood Canyon, so that people could get up to Brighton so they could go skiing up there. Warwick, Curzon, Elda, Martha Breer, the snow really gets deep up at Big Cottonwood Canyon. Another Dorothy at 1084. Curzon, I think he broke his leg skiing, I believe, as I remember. Gracie Fields, a British comedian who went all over the United States singing. She sang comedy songs, very entertaining, a very famous comedian. But this was her debut into the United States and her first stop to experiment with is Salt Lake City. Harold B. Lee and his wife Fern Lee on Temple Square. Dad, and this is Connie Quinton. They had come down for conference time. So I think this was October probably of about 1940. The Salt Lake Temple. Dan Heaton, former missionary companion of Chicks. It's Connie and Eldon coming out of the house. Dan Heaton again, Curzon, and a friend. Another Christmas party. Boating again. The reason these pictures are a little mixed up is because they were put on 350 feet film and then spliced together, and so they didn't keep them in sequence, so that's why we're mixed up going back and forth a little bit. We've gone from winter to summer here. Curzon all dressed up in his tuxedo. I think he was going to the prom that day, the University of Utah prom, I think. He was really gussied up. Now we're back on the river again. See, the films in those days, I think I mentioned it before, were just 50 feet and 10 minutes of film. So it took a lot of 50 feet film to put together to make this big video. It was put together by a company that did that, so you weren't there to supervise it. Mother. This is a little Bromley boy. That's Carl Bromley and Faye. Carl had been in the ROTC at the University of Utah, and they were the ones that were called first to go into the Army. Regardless of what they were doing, you had to go. Mother. There's Chick again. Albert Rosenthal was building his house right next door. Albert Rosenthal is the one who also supervised the temple in New Zealand. He was very good with construction, but he did build a house next door. Oh, this is the Douglas School, I think. Douglas School. The last day of school. Yes, it was. It was Eva Mae Green was principal of the school. The kids are all getting her autograph. I think she was made a supervisor at that time, so it was her last day at Douglas School. The end of the year. Thelma Ludlow. Here we are all coming out the front door. These were all the teachers at Douglas School. Now these are Chick's companions. And I think these were the two boys that were on the Aleutian chain with my brother Chick. And they were both killed on that Aleutian chain between Alaska and Canada and Asia. Or Russia, I guess it'd be. Dad and Dorothy. Dad and this other young man that I don't remember their names. Irene. Another armistice, another parade. You know, the reason I took this parade was because this little gal was had been secretary at the Douglas School. We used to think the parades were great. They were all handmade things. They weren't all fancy like they are this day and age, but everybody got in and made their own floats. Now, Elda and I went to visit Warwick in San Francisco. Now we're in San Francisco. This is before they were married. They were engaged, but Warwick had been, his draft number came up, so he volunteered to get in to the Navy. He preferred the Navy to the Army, but his draft number was getting close. And you had to go to the war when your draft number, regardless of what you were doing or your occupation or whatever it was. You had no choice. You had to go. So Eldon, I think Warwick was stationed there in San Francisco. We went to visit him. And this is at Flyshacker Zoo, just out of San Francisco. Warwick and Elda again. Flyshacker Zoo is still one of my favorite places to go to in San Francisco area. That thing's still going. These are, I think we went to the Cliff House, which is right on the ocean front, to get these beautiful pictures of the ocean. Yeah, this is all still Flyshacker again, I can tell. I remember all the boys in their sailor uniforms called each other mate, M-A-T-E. And they'd salute each other, or bow, or just nod to one another. Hi, mate. Now we're back at 1084. Looks like Dorothy was sweeping the snow. Yeah, we're up in the mountains now, though. Sammy Green. Yeah, we're in the mountains. We're up near Brighton in the wintertime. Sammy and Edith Green. Sammy was a great photographer. That's Irene walking near the edge of the creek. Jack near the Jordan River. I don't remember their names. They were friends of my brother Chick's, came to visit us. We used to have lots of visitors at 1084. Melba Gannell and her mother and father. She was a friend of mine. Irene and Melba. Melba liked to come to our house because we had this big family and she was an only child. So she used to like to come and visit us. These were more friends. Mother. Dad. And Irene. A clown, a cousin, and a friend. Elda. Ab Boitler. Irene. I had this movie camera, so I used to be the one that was taking all the pictures. Dorothy and Mother. The movie camera was a big one too, and I had to lug it around everywhere I went. And then you had to have a projector and a screen to put the pictures on. Jack used to be my helper. He knew how to run that machine. I think this is Donald when he got his driver's license. He was 16. Marion Stuff. Marion Stuff Bodine, her first child. This is Katie. Katie Jensen was the lady on the general board who went around to the different wards and stakes and gave talks to girls on how to be charming. She was called a charm lady. Cloris Rich Lee. I don't remember these ladies' names, but they were all on. This is the party at Ardella Davies' home. That one I know is Esther Ruckert. Ardella Davy, Esther again, and Edith Gertz, I think her name was. Now these are some pansies. Jack, I think we're all planting pansies for Mother. She loved having pansies. That's Curzon helping to plant the pansies. Irene. Frank Wise. He was from London. Jack and the bulrushes that grew at the side of the river. The red-winged blackbirds used to be around there, and then Marie Waldron and my mother. Dad, he was dressed up for a pioneer program. They were putting on a program showing how some of the pioneers pulled those hand carts across the plains. Dorothy. Now we're at Temple Square. I remember this girl with a visitor from Canada had come down to visit the Salt Lake, Tennessee Temple Square, and it was a real still is a tourist attraction. Always has been, because they put on a concert in the Tabernacle. Every Thursday, I think, there was a concert. Now, I think we're on the BYU. I don't know what campus we were on. Warwick and Sheila. Dad. Irene there in the checkered dress. I think we're up at Brighton there. That was another favorite spot. This is Margaret Retzing, who had polio that caused her to be a cripple. This is Janet coming out of the hospital when she was just born. Oh, this is Eddie Blazer. Ed Blazer. And Eddie and Bernice, I'd known them in the Navy days. Well, Dorothy and I went up to Canada to visit those cousins. And then we went over to Victoria. And I think this is where we're going to Victoria. Oh, we're over in Victoria now. By the hotel there, is so beautiful in Victoria on Vancouver Island. This is at that beautiful Victoria Hotel. I think we're on the ship now. We went from Vancouver to Victoria and then Victoria over to Seattle by boat. But we stopped after we left Seattle. We went down to Oswego, Oregon, to visit my Wave Navy friend, Betty Livingston Rennie. Dorothy and I went there together. Their home was right on the banks of the Oswego Lake. Betty's father and her mother and the flowers they had growing there by the lake and their dog. Betty still loves dogs. Now we're back in 1084. Skinning a deer that the boys had been deer hunting. Eddie Blazer in his uniform. He was the officer in charge of the link department in Pasco when I went to Pasco, Washington. He was in charge of it. Now we're at the Acres Hill. Campo Square again, back in Salt Lake now. And Sister Fern Lee, this young man was investigating the Mormon church. So we took him to Temple Square to show him around. Donald. Sister Stringham, Jenny Stringham, and Mother and Dad. Donald and Irma had just got married in the temple. Brother Lee married, Harold B. Lee married them. Curzon, Mother and Dad. Donald, a quick glance. Irene. Dorothy. Oh, yes, Dorothy. And Francis. Eldon. When I first met Eldon. This is when Eldon first came into my life. We're up at Brighton, I think, here. Irma. Just enjoying the canyon air up there and the atmosphere, surrounded by these high mountains all around. We're way up high. Mother, Dad. And Ralph Davey had just come home from India. He had been over there serving Everybody was so glad to welcome him home. This time of the year was the 1946 and 47. Now we're up at Aspen Grove, the trail to Mount Timpanogos. Guess we're climbing along the trail. The flowers are beautiful along the way. There's flowers growing along the trail and little waterfalls. Makes it all very pleasant. Now the glacier, you climb so far, you get to Emerald Lake, which is just below the high peak. But some people never get any higher than Emerald Lake. It's another, about at least a 30-minute hike or 30 to 45-minute hike up quite a steep trail. But there is a trail up to the top, very tip top. But we love to slide down the glacier. We used to take special equipment along, that little square of canvas that I remember. We used to sit on it to ride down the mountain on the glacier. Now we're back on Temple Square again. Mother, Ed and Minnie Sorensen, Minnie and Ed again, Elda and Warwick, Winnie and Chick, Donald and Irma, they were the bride and bridegroom. Curzon. Here comes Mother and Dad. There's Irma and Don again. Brother Harold B. Lee married them. He was right outside the temple there meeting them as they came out. Irma. More Dorothy. I think we were climbing, went down to Bryce Canyon. Eldon. Now we're on the BYU campus. Sitting in the cozy little spot. Eldon and I found that to sit and talk. This is the major building on the campus. And this is Maureen was looking out the window and could see this. This is Eldon down there. This is Chick and baby Janet. Maureen and Bry Espenshine. Bry had been a friend of mine in the Navy, and Maureen Lee. That's Gordon Jenkins. I had known these two young men in Oklahoma. They were in the Army in Oklahoma when I was stationed there. And they lived down there in just south of Provo. We went down. Gordon Jenkins took me down there to visit him. Kathleen Taylor and Margaret Wing on the BYU campus. And Anita Hyatt. Margaret Wing and Kathleen to the right. I don't remember their names. They were all students at the Y. Kathleen going down the trail from the Mazer building. Now we're in Ogden, where Eldon took me to go and visit his brother Artell, and this is Doug and Richard and James. Fosha. This is the commencement exercise. I think President MacDonald was president then. Faculty was much smaller then than it is now. Nothing compared. Maureen and Ernie. Maureen Lean married Ernie Wilkins. Dr. Sidney Sperry. It's Dr. Widsoe. And Al Payne on the right. Maureen. Ernie and Maureen. I don't mean, no, Al Payne. Al Payne and Maureen Lee. Eldon. Maureen. Howard Salisbury on the right. My father here dressed up in a Benjamin Franklin outfit. He was going to be in a play as Benjamin Franklin. Took place in the Tabernacle. President MacDonald and his wife. He was president of the college, of the university. Howard Salisbury, surrounded by his admirers. He taught religion at the BYU. Kathleen Taylor, Howard. These are the Dixon's tulips. He was well known for his garden with all these hundreds of tulips. They were just beautiful. Now we're at the dedication of the This Is the Place monument in Salt Lake City. Right there by Parley's Canyon, where Brigham Young said this is the place. And they built this beautiful monument, and Eldon and I went to it. This is before we were married. These are our courting days. There's George Albert Smith. President David O. McKay. David O. McKay was president of the Mormon Church at that time. George Albert Smith followed him. Eldon. Oh, this is a camping trip that I went with the USU from Logan. I was on the camping committee with the WWII General Board, and Sister Letty Cannon was president, and she wanted me to go and take this 3-day hike. We had the donkeys, or the mules, to take with our camping equipment, and we hiked into the Wayne Wonderland, just north of Logan, between Utah and then you go over into Wyoming. The Wayne Wonderland is just north of the USU campus. We each had our own pup tents. Well, 2 of us, I think, shared a pup tent, as I remember. It was quite an experience. We had skits, put on the campfire program. Everybody had to be a skit, and that was their costume. I think we've gone to the. I think we're at the airport here. Mother and Dad were going to fly up to Logan, as I remember. Mother and Dad there. And we wanted them to go on a little airplane trip. So they flew up to Logan. Curzon leaving for his mission to Kentucky. This was the winter of the big snow. There's Jerry. Jerry was the second oldest grandchild. Janet was the oldest grandchild. Jerry was the second one. He's a son of Donald and Irma. Janet was Chicken Winnie. Dorothy. Now we're on conference time on Temple Square with Sister Fern Lee and Brother Lee's mother. Sister, Brother Lee's mother, and Sister Fern Lee. Irene, back in my uniform, my Navy outfit. I think I took this back in Atlanta, Georgia, when I first joined the Navy. They sent us to Atlanta to take link instruction because we were all learning how to teach pilots how to fly by instruments. They sent us from New York down to Atlanta, Georgia. Now we went over to visit Stan Curzon was on his mission at this time, and I was stationed in Atlanta, Georgia, and had a couple of days off, so I went over with some friend, I don't remember who, but we went over to Kentucky to say hello to Curzon. Engelmans. This is Dr. Sidney Engelman and his wife Mildred Engelman. They came from Amherst, where he had got his doctorate degree, came to the University of Utah to teach English in the English department. Dora Dunn and my mother, Warwick. That's Warwick. Warwick in his Navy uniform again. Oh yes, Warwick had just got married here in the temple while he was in the Navy. He had been on the West Coast, I think, and was sent to Chicago and was going to be working there in the Navy there, and so they were married during the war, and I remember how difficult it was to get the sugar to make this wedding cake. I was so lucky to find this bakery who could even get the sugar to make a cake. We held the reception, not the reception, but the party was in Harold B. Lee's garden. Sister Lee offered her garden because everybody was going for the war effort in these days. And they were so glad to do something to help those who were in the service that had been taken out of their homes and sent because their draft number came up. They were in the beautiful gardens of Brother and Sister Lee. They were so happy to have this wedding cake. Warwick and Eldith at the train station now, ready to go on to Chicago. We were all there to wave them goodbye. For Frank Wise from London, England.